chuta solo, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Minute. It's your daily podcast in which we analyze, we scrutinize, and we celebrate Solo, a Star Wars story, 1 minute at a time. I'm Alex Robinson from alexrobinson.fun.
I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.com.
And I'm Chrysanthe Tan. I'm a musician, composer, violinist, and I host Star Wars Music Minute.
Welcome
and I'm
back.
an art critic.
Oh,
That's why we're
which
here.
I've never mentioned, but you can read a lot of reviews that I've done of albums and concerts and stuff on various publications.
Oh, interesting.
wow.
Yeah.
I was thinking about doing it's more of a not so much criticism, more of a memoir thing recently, because I realized it was this past summer, I guess last summer now, was the 30th anniversary of the first concert that I ever went to.
Wow.
What was your first concert?
It was Guns N' Roses with Skid Row at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Uniondale, Long Island.
Oh.
Crazy.
Nobody correct me. I said in Uniondale, Long Island. I can say in Uniondale, and it's on Long Island. But I just want to make sure everybody knows. I know where I'm from. Sorry.
My first was Arcade Fire.
Was there a fire? Did somebody scream fire?
No.
Where was that?
It was at the Bayside, something in the Bay Area.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, something in the Bay Area.
Mine was U2 at the Hartford
Shoreline Amphitheater. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Shoreline Amphitheater.
I recognize that from World Tour shirts.
I've played there, so I got to play there later, a few years after the attending, and I was like, oh my gosh, because when I was attending the concert, I was like sitting in the back, and I was like, it would be cool to play one day, but I'm never going to be able to do that. And then I got to do it.
And then you did.
Yeah.
Life's dream fulfilled. Way to go.
Sadly, I never got to play the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. But Alex, what were you going to say? Yours is.
I went to go see U2 at the Hartford Civic Center in 1987. So, but anyway,
home of the Whalers.
Home of the Whalers and home of minute 13 of Solo, a Star Wars story. Minute number 13 starts off with Qi'ra being hauled away by stormtroopers. And it ends a minute later with Han looking on as a traveler is rousted by stormtroopers.
That's something that I totally appreciate.
People being roughed up by stormtroopers?
Well, yes, because it's accurate portrayal of, I believe, how people in
airport
that
security
situation would react. That once they think that they missed somebody, you know what I mean? Once there's like, oh, somebody got through, like somebody, there's a thing, then the rest of them are acting extra tough and just giving other people a hard time because they're making a show of force. They're like, oh, we're responding to the perceived kind of slight against them with a show of force above and beyond. So I feel like that seems accurate.
Yeah,
this is a funny minute.
It's fun. I was talking about like, hey, the police responded with an
poorly done,
unwarranted show of force. Like it's so funny.
Oh, yeah,
from
my
a certain
comment
point of
was
view.
not related to that. I was switching subjects.
No, it's okay.
I think it's a funny minute. I think it's funny, not at all in what happens, but watching it is a funny experience for me. It reminds me of like. I've never seen Newsies, but it reminds me of Newsies for some reason. Just like the look of Han. It feels so like we're in a musical right now, or like we're watching someone in a play. He looks very like, maybe it's the way that he's like huddled and so like clean shaven and like just so like innocent looking, like like the image of like when you are watching a musical and you see people up close and they're like definitely not like their makeup is doing all the
right,
like they're like, I don't want to say Hollywood faces, but I mean they're wearing a ton of makeup, but then like all of their gashes and whatever are makeup and whatever. And I feel like here we're seeing like makeup on, like he looks roughed up in a very
theatrical way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And like just his look on his face when he's like walking really and with that music playing in the background. I don't know. It just feels like a dramatic like part from a musical, and it's funny to me. It probably shouldn't be funny, but I feel like I'm watching like a comedy
That's
or like a musical.
that's not the first time that's come up in this season.
Oh,
Or with the Dickensian street urchins. That was also like, it seems like there's a musical, like something's, they're about to go into a scene. So this totally something, especially the way that here when he's walking by people, it's like these are like he would be kind of walking one way across the front of the stage, and they would be walking the other way, going off. He'd like grab the hat off the kid, who then walk off stage. Going like that kind of a thing, like the cloak from somebody else, and
it
totally,
even looks like a
definitely
set.
stagey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, no one beyond going, hey, no one seems to mind that their clothes are
Right.
being torn off their body by
right.
this
They're like,
stranger
hey, as they
passerby.
walk, exit stage
Yeah.
right.
And also, I think it's just like when you're in a public place and you are going through something either emotionally or something, and you're walking through and you're basically the main character and you're in this very public place. Like, we are focusing so much on Han here, obviously. It's kind of like as if he's vlogging and like a camera's following him and he's like, I'm the only person that matters here. Like all the other, maybe it's also the way the voices are mixed that are coming from
Well,
elsewhere. It's just something about the way everything's coming together just feels very like we're watching a vlogger right now, or like following someone in a musical, and everyone else like a bit character being like selling bread, blah blah blah. Like,
I need 6 eggs.
yeah.
The one of my notes was disembodied voices, because that's exactly it. And
Oh,
I've been talking about this with the Disney era stuff has a problem with sound mixing, and this is a great example of it, because there's stuff, little snippets, little sprinkles of like remotely expository dialogue, like the traveler's been apprehended, and someone got through the checkpoint and stuff like that, but coming from nowhere, and it seems like a video game to me, where it's just like you hear these things just kind of going on, and that all these like NPCs are just kind of walking around, like Han should go up and talk to one of them, and they would say the same thing every time he talked to them, and be like, oh, seems like there's some hubbub. Then he'd go around and walk and talk to somebody else and be like, oh, seems like there's some hubbub. I want,
yeah.
like
Turn around. Like,
it really does. I'm going to continue to have this problem with the sound mixing, or point it out every time I hear it, because it's driving me crazy. It started with the stormtroopers in the very first scene in the Force Awakens.
Force Awakens.
That it just seems like they're not
where
coming from
when
anywhere.
can you say exactly what you're talking about with the stormtrooper?
When the
Like at the beginning?
stormtroopers first show up in the very beginning
Oh,
of Force Awakens, and they're doing their kind of assault on that little town. The stormtrooper voices, are, the sound of them is great. They're the good kind of filtering, and it sounds like they're coming through a mechanical thing, but it sounds like they're just coming from nowhere. They're coming from, like center channel mid screen, no matter what's going on the actual action. It's just like, oh, check that one, and it's like it's not coming from anywhere. It's like it totally sounds like a video game mix to me.
is it Finn's POV there?
No, I don't.
Basically,
And well, I mean, it
I'll
just
have
keeps
to
happening throughout, with
throughout the
stuff like
movie.
this and stuff like here, where it's just like, the traveler's been apprehended, but it's not coming from, like,
Doesn't sound diegetic. It sounds like it's on the soundtrack.
yeah, essentially, and it's not like I don't need to see a speaker, but it also doesn't seem like it's. I shouldn't put my hands up like that because I block my light. I don't need to see a speaker, but it's also like it's not in the mix. It sounds like it's separate from the background noise, but not coming from a person or a thing. And so it's just this kind of disembodied, floating voice.
This was the first movie where I think I noticed that it happens
Me
later
too.
on when we meet Rio, the Jon Favreau character.
Okay.
And whenever he talks, it sounds exactly like you said. Like, no matter where the character is or what no matter what environment he's in, his audio is always the exact same Jon Favreau, crisp, I'm in a studio kind of
Right.
way. You know what I mean? They can be in a tank where it's echoey and loud, but when he talks, it still sounds exactly the same as, the character, as if he's in a studio. So
Right.
different
Yeah,
era, I guess.
I never really, I don't think I've noticed it until now either. And I don't know, that doesn't mean it has never happened, but maybe it's just the other elements we're working to distract me from that or something. I think the
Mhm.
music also here and the state. It's hard to separate because they're all together. So many things here contribute that it's like unavoidable for me to see because not just the sound, it's also the way that he's walking, it's also the way that he looks. So now it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that it's just like hitting me in the face or whatever.
Mhm.
What is that? Hitting me over the head? No. Slapping me in the face. Whatever.
It's
Yeah.
when it's hard to tell what he sounds like when he's slapping you in the face because it's coming from nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a disembodied slap.
Speaking of the scene of Han stealing all the clothes, I have to admire the restraint of the filmmakers because in different hands, this easily could have been him either A, getting his trademark vest by stealing a vest off someone, or putting on a Indiana Jones fedora when he grabs it, and then he goes like, "What?" He looks at it, and then
then he puts it down,
and then he throws it off, behind him or something like that. So kudos to the filmmakers for not grabbing the lowest of the hanging fruits.
Yes.
He could have gotten his dice here.
Oh yeah,
totally.
From the airport, like the Brookstone or whatever that. Hudson
He should have
News.
just stolen luggage from someone, and inside was basically Han Solo's outfit. He just changed right into Han Solo's outfit.
And Chewie's in there too.
If they could have, maybe they could have gotten that guy who played the guy with the hat and the leather jacket and the whip from Last Crusade from the beginning. The guy who's not Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Like maybe next time, kid, like that guy.
I'll go you one farther. I'm going to say then he looks at the wallet that he finds and it says Han Solo, and that's how he just steals someone else's name. So.
But then who would have been beforehand? That would have been like a.
You never would know.
Well, I've got a note about that too. We'll get to the naming sequence later.
Oh yes, we sure will.
We sure will.
I had a note that potentially involves a former guest of the show, because Han runs by a chair when he's looking for a place to hide, and I was wondering if that was a Pete Fielding, the chairman. I wonder if he built that chair.
We'll have to track him down and find out.
We'll give him a call later in the season and see if he built the chair that he hides behind.
Mm-hmm. I like the we see the stormtroopers rousting the passersby, and then you see a astromech droid just kind of calmly walking by as this thing goes on. Right. I think that was a real statement on today's society that we're just kind of like, oh yeah, police brutality, whatever. I gotta go catch my flight. I got an astromech droid.
Droids don't care about that.
Yeah, that's droids.
You know what they say, droids don't care.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw a droid get run over by a car last week and played for laughs. So droids shouldn't care anymore about humans being tortured then. Anyway.
And back to the music, which is getting very dramatic here. This is this is the Han Solo searching theme, and it's the
goes a little something like this.
Hit it.
It goes like basically. It does more stuff too, but
I thought you were playing Jurassic Park for a second though.
I mean, okay, it goes like
right. Oh, there you go. Now I know what you.
And the way that the string, there's string arpeggios happening. It's like and it's constant, so it's not it's constant, rhythmically, things are happening. It's not basically what I'm trying to say is this is sort of as if Han Solo were going to break out into song here. This is his aria almost. And because all the other airport or spaceport and the astromech droid and all the other people are just going about their day and they're not hearing, this character is clearly going through this whole thing in his head.
Right.
Because that's his. So this is the version of when Disney characters break out into song. Everyone else around them is doing their thing, but they're having this emotional thing that they're getting out. So that's his moment right here. It's almost like he's having his private little song, his aria, if you're to apply an opera term, which is when action kind of stops. Not that action is stopped here, but kind of he's just milling about. Not much is happening, kind of. we're just getting like a close up on his face and he's going through something. That's the point of this scene.
He's in turmoil.
He's in turmoil. This thing is happening.
His old life is literally locked on the other side of a gate right now. Everything
and this
he
would
ever
make
knew.
a good song. He could sing about that.
It's totally.
He's never been so low in his entire life.
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the soundtrack, because how do you feel about the soundtrack as far as the soundtracks of stuff? There's only really two, or if you count, some of the TV stuff, there's 3, 4 maybe, occurrences of non John Williams driven soundtrack work. So it's an interesting thing to kind of step out and experience. How do you feel about the Solo soundtrack?
Okay, so Solo, because it's the movie that I know the least well, it's the soundtrack that I know the least well too, because I'm not a soundtrack listener. I don't enjoy listening to soundtracks just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to know soundtracks when I also know the film that is the context of it, which is, plug for Star Wars Music Minute. We're going through Solo, the music, focusing on the music. However, this is one that I am genuinely interested in going through, even though it's not my favorite film, because this is a very interesting collaboration, this soundtrack, and it, like, I feel like there is a lot for us to learn from it in terms of the future of Star Wars. It gives us kind of a glimpse into the future of Star Wars, possibly. And what I mean by that is, unlike Rogue One, which was by Michael Giacchino, this was by John Williams and John Powell. So John Williams wrote Han's themes. He wrote this. And he wrote the dee 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 dee. And he wrote the dee 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 dee. Like, he wrote the adventures of, he wrote the suite, and then John Powell did the score, but based on the themes by John Williams. And John Powell wrote additional themes as well. But John Williams wrote, like, John Powell signed onto this project knowing that Williams would be doing the themes. And that's one of the draws that he had to the project. Like, he wanted to work with John Williams and felt more comfortable doing it if John Williams were writing the themes. And so this is an interesting collaboration that, like, I find very interesting to experience, to kind of hear what aspects of John Williams's writing that John Powell tries to incorporate into the score. And there's quite a bit. Like, John Powell has said in interviews that working on this film was like doing a master's degree. It was like he learned so much from just like the way that John Williams writes and spins out themes. And so trying to kind of step into those shoes, but with his own voice, like, was very, very interesting. Yeah. So the more I listen to it, the more intrigued I am by it. And the more I hear John Powell speak in interviews, the more I like him too. And the more, like, we'll get into this later, but like, there are some very intentional things that John Powell did, and that because John Powell is on the record and talks a lot more about it than, like, John Williams doesn't really do tons of interviews, and he's not like very online or anything. It's not like any podcast like Star Wars. He doesn't do like the interview circuit of like Star Wars podcasters.
Strange.
John Williams does not do that. But John Powell has, spoken and has talked on like composer podcasts and stuff like that. And so he offers more specific insight into like the composers that they're drawing from. And there was this like quote that he said. There was something that I wrote it down, but he said, like, a John Williams score always flows forward, unlike most of our scores, meaning like film composers, which pulse forward. Something like, I don't have the quote right, but I said the quote on the on Star Wars Music Minute, but yeah. So I guess that's my way of saying like to be determined, but I'm intrigued and I like the themes that John Williams wrote for this, and I think John Powell also wrote some interesting themes that come in a little bit more later. He wrote the Han and Qi'ra theme.
Hmm.
And then there are also some choices that I think that I want to talk to more people about that are like maybe ethnomusicologists. And I'm speaking about the like Enfy's Nest stuff
Right.
because, well, we're not there yet, but I don't know if you recall that music, but you'll get there. They used Bulgarian women's choir, Bulgarian choirs for the voices for that. And well, yeah, I don't want to say too much about that, but it sounds very powerful and everything, but I have some reservations about it.
Right.
I have some reservations about it. But overall, intrigued by the score. I'm excited to get more into it. Some parts of it I feel like do not work for me, but because historically with all films, my opinion of scores is very tied to the films. I pretty much never walk away from a film being like, that was a crap film, but I loved the score. For me, it's always they go together.
Right.
If I love a film, I probably liked the score too. And if I didn't like the film, I probably didn't like the score either. Like those are, like when people say best director, sometimes kind of implies best picture. For me, like the score implies like the director. Like those things are so tied together for me, like the score and my opinion of the movie as a whole. So because some parts of the film I think are less powerful for me, sometimes I think the score doesn't match it.
Right.
And sometimes it's a matter of, and I felt this way a little bit in Rogue One too, where I think the music is overpowering, is more dramatic than the scene affords. Sort of like here, where it's like the music sticks out as being super dramatic and like Disney song-ish, because I think visually it looks a little bit silly here, or it looks a little bit more
Stagey.
lighthearted than it should come off. Yeah, so it's like the music is kind of being like, no, this is serious. And so I think there's a little bit of a mismatch there, which, yeah, it says nothing about John Powell, but it says something about the way it comes together for me. I felt this way in Rogue One too during Jin's speech.
Right.
And I mentioned it on the show, but yeah.
Had you heard any of Powell's other work before?
Yes, a little bit. The problem is I've been going through his discography from the chronologically from the beginning, so I don't think I've like really hit his best work yet.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm really interested to hear is his is How to Train Your Dragon, because I've heard really good things about that score. And I think I've heard him say that he like loves doing animation. And I think animation sort of affords more flexibility and imagination, and I know that he can. I'm interested to see what he does with animation. But the thing is, I don't really listen to soundtracks, so I have to watch the movie first, and then
to digest it.
Yeah,
I was unfamiliar with his work, and then I just looked up his filmography, and you know what?
It's vast.
You know what? One of the movies that he worked on, he did the score for.
The Italian Job.
Paul Blart. Jumper. Jumper's not the Looper. Is the
Looper is the Rian Johnson. Jumper is the
Hayden Christensen
movie.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
which no one has seen.
Funny.
Jumper. Yeah. People have seen it and they say they like it, but I don't.
But no one on the show is. I think I actually saw it.
He did the Bourne films too.
I've not seen those. I'm looking through this. I'm trying to think of which of these movies.
Oh, he did Happy Feet. That's right.
I have seen Happy Feet.
I'm kind of surprised.
He has a really big career. Like he is definitely an A-list composer, 100%. So
But
yeah.
I feel like
I'm kind of surprised that like John Williams. We've talked before on the show how it like John Williams doesn't do it all himself. He has like a team of people who help him, like
mhm.
hmm
produce the thing. So I'm curious as to like why in a scenario like this, if John Williams is like, you know what, I'm stepping down, like his basically first in command doesn't then become the new
No,
guy.
no. Okay.
Right.
So John Williams has every composer on a film has a team,
Yeah.
and like John Williams composes. It's not the same. Okay. It's not the same as Hans Zimmer having a team. Hans Zimmer has a team, like, and ghostwriters and like a team writing. Like
Uh-huh.
Hans Zimmer has a team in a very different sense than John Williams has a team. John Williams has like, so a composer tends to like, okay, for John Williams, he will write out like he will write out what the music is going to be, and he'll orchestrate it to, okay, so the process of orchestration is taking the sketch that the composer wrote and assigning the instruments to it and sort of fleshing out details in the style of the composer. And the composer might write notes like melody and woodwinds, or pass the melody from woodwinds to something else. And the orchestrator's work is obviously it's somewhat creative, like in parts where decisions have to be made, but it's really carrying out the vision that the composer has already set forth. And someone like John Williams he's known in the industry for like writing very detailed sketches. And John Powell has said too that like because of doing this project, he got to see John Williams's original sketches, and he was like, and that made me feel like because they were perfect, and like they were all just there. They were all just like written out. Like there it is. That's not the norm though. Usually composers will have a much less detailed version of what they want. But John Williams does compose many staves, which is called like, he'll do many lines, many parts. So
We'll do some lines.
he writes in like another John Powell quote. This is what's been so interesting is because John Powell has worked with John Williams now, he's able to comment on from a composer's perspective on what sets John Williams apart and what he can learn, and what we all may learn from him. And so he says like John Williams writes in polyphony, like he thinks in all these multiple parts, not just like the way that all of us, us like composers think in terms of like a piano line with like something simple. John Williams thinks, and like he naturally thinks in all these parts where he's like, yeah, this woodwind thing, and then this cello thing, and then they all come together like this, and then they'll swap like sort of like that. So yes, John Williams has a team. John Powell had a team for this too, but still they are composing, and it's not the type of thing where John Williams doesn't have a second in command for writing. He has maybe long-term relationships with orchestrators who do a very important and very different job, and they wouldn't want to, like, they're masters at
different
their
skill set.
craft of orchestration. And yeah, after I'll say after I was on this show for Rogue One, when we were talking about Giacchino and orchestration and everything, there was someone in the Star Wars Minute Listener Society that had a slight rebuttal to something that I said on the show, or like questions about it. And we had a back and forth in the Facebook group, and it was a very good conversation about orchestration. And he came on Star Wars Music Minute just a few weeks ago.
Look
so
at that.
Jeremy Sarek, but he so yeah, shout out to Jeremy. But all of that is to say, they all have teams, but there's like different degrees of what teammates do.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like the skill set involved in being an orchestrator are not necessarily the same skill sets that a composer has, but nonetheless, it's a valuable skill. But it's not like they take over. It's not more administrative, but I don't know.
It's definitely not administrative. It's just
right.
It's completely different. It's a completely different role, and like some of John Williams' orchestrators are definitely famous in the music world in their own rights. Like, oh, like Angela Morley, for example, like, oh, did Angela Morley orchestrate that? That sounds like an orchestration by, some people can tell these things, or like, oh, Herb
Yeah.
Spencer, or like things
That's
like that,
funny.
orchestrators.
They have distinctive fingerprints that people listening can be like, oh, that's totally a.
Right.
That also makes sense.
Yeah. So John Powell had an orchestrator, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.
All right.
All right.
The last thing I have for minute 13 is Han starts the minute off by he's all teary eyed and he's yelling, "I'll come back, to Qi'ra." But I think it also works as a foreshadowing to remind you that in the trench run he does come back.
Oh,
So
wow.
because I know we
I'll
always
keep coming back.
Yeah.
That when I'm frozen in carbonite and they're having a contract dispute and you're not sure if I'm going to be in the third movie, I'll come back.
And then when they need me to do a 5-minute pickup shot as a ghost or something, I'll be back.
I'll come back.
I misspoke about one of the cues. This one was written by John Williams, and that is the Han searching cue or the motif. But the other one, which is like just that, is by John Powell, and it's the Secrets motif. I know it's kind of like okay. So I got out my violin because it's easier to make the leap if you hear it on the strings, because here it is on strings when Han is like ducking and panting behind those crates.
And the chair that may or may not have been built
by
by
a
former guest of the show.
Yeah. So the music like crescendos, and this Secrets motif repeats 4 times, and it like escalates every time, and then it gets really slow. It's very dramatic, and it's like it's super slow. Does that ring a bell?
I keep hearing Jurassic Park now that you put it in my head.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
It does. Well, as we've said, it's I feel like the music doesn't stick with me for the most part until there are times when I definitely know. And then also talking to you will stick things in my head because I'm like, oh, that's what Chrysanthe was talking about. So now I'll keep an eye out for that, or an ear out for that.
Yeah, I like this motif.
Yeah,
that Powell came up with, Secrets.
All right. Well, anyone else have anything else? If no one has anything else for minute 13, we'll wrap this thing up.
Oh wait.
Oh,
I have to read. Okay.
Oh,
to bring us up to date with the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the recap of this scene?
The boy pounded again. "I'll come back," he shouted. "I will." He stepped back from the glass and watched her retreating figure, looking like he'd been cut off from life support. Footed troopers had reached the gate and looked to Falthena for information. "The boy made it through," she said, an edge of command to her voice. These troopers always responded to a commanding voice, she had discovered. "Find him before he gets off planet." They nodded to her and bustled toward the officials-only door. She smiled, feeling the comforting weight of the coaxium vial tucked into her boot. "Thank you for your diligence," she said, as they went searching for the boy. Han staggered, as if he had been cut free to swim in a vacuum. If he went back for her and got caught, then, if Lady Proxima didn't kill him, Qi'ra would, for not at least taking advantage of her capture. He sank into the crowd, his throat tight and his eyes blurry. He had to get away before the troopers started looking for him on the other side. He stumbled over an open pack. Nearby, some parents were fussing with a small child, trying to force it into a sweater. Their backs were to him. Han spied a brown cloak among the clothes and snagged it. Then he lifted a floppy hat from the head of a passing kid and darted behind a column, panting. Han went still, the gravity of the situation hitting him. He'd lost the coaxium and he'd lost Qi'ra. No credits, no ID, no support. He had only his wits. However, that had been his situation for most of his life, and he was still alive, wasn't he? He couldn't help Qi'ra as he was now. He had to take care of himself and then come back for her. He took a deep breath and looked around. The spaceport wasn't as crowded on this side, as people had dispersed toward their specific gates. Across the way, he saw an Imperial recruitment office. It was a way off the planet, even if it wasn't the ideal way. This is kind of internal stuff. I don't really know. Yeah. But anyway, it's all like another cue. He stood amongst the recruits, some Imperial haunted and hungry.
That's when he belted out his song.
Yeah.
Corellia.
I'm alone.
We should have you read those at the beginning of the minute. Now that I
Okay,
think about it,
I'll read it at the beginning
next time
Maybe,
you can
yeah.
Get us in the mood.
provide
Yeah.
a detailed, more detailed description. Well, hey everyone, you know where we are. You know where you can find
Where?
us.
Where?
Social media. That's right.
Oh.
And we're on the Twitter. You can follow the show at Star Wars Minute. Chrysanthe, what's your
Star
Wars
Wars
Twitter
News
handle?
Minute.
What?
Star
Oh, now
Wars
it's it.
Newsman,
Newsman.
because Music Minute was too long for Twitter's names.
Sure.
Oh, is that true? It was
Yeah.
too many letters.
Yeah.
Well, we're also on Instagram at the Star Wars Minute. Chrysanthe, you have an Instagram going?
Yes, I don't really post that much, but I'm on TikTok.
Oh, on TikTok. We
At
are
Star
also
Wars
on
Music
TikTok.
Minute.
Yeah, we have a TikTok, but we only posted a couple of things.
Oh, I see a cat head for those of you watching us on YouTube.
This is
That's right.
Anakin.
You can watch every episode of our solo coverage on the YouTube. StarWarsMinute.com/YouTube, where we occasionally throw in visual jokes that we don't acknowledge on the show. So check those out. And check us out tomorrow on another Star Wars Minute. Oh, I want to do that.